So do you guys tell me it's my time to go? Great way to do this. I'm new here. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet or not, but I am going to use that as much as I can for as long as I can. They told me a while ago, Jimmy, them told me I'm not new anymore. They're going to blame me for it all. We're thankful that you're with us tonight. It's good to be with you on a Tuesday night. We don't normally do a Tuesday night, but it's good to be with you on a Tuesday night. I hope that you have great plans and you're ready to participate some way in Thanksgiving, if it's maybe just with yourself and thanking the Lord for what He's done for you. When you think about what God has blessed us with, we are so very blessed, and sometimes it's easy to forget that. We're thankful again that you're with us tonight. Before we get started, I've asked Brother Jimmy to come and to lead us in a prayer. They wanted to pray for Mr. Eskew. He's got to have surgery soon. That's one. Is there anybody else that maybe we want to make mention of tonight? Yes, Charles Wooters. He's in the hospital. I saw him today. I want to remember Charles. He's got pneumonia, he said, so he may be there a little bit. Somebody else? Becky Orr. Okay. I sympathize. I'm struggling with names as well, okay? Ross Pendergrass. And Ross got out of the hospital yesterday, so we're thankful for that. Yeah. Gary Hatch. Gary Hatch. Anybody else? All right, Lord willing, we're going to walk through Matthew chapter 25 tonight. You can go ahead and pull your Bibles out that. I was told that I have from 2 to 92, basically. Okay, I'm not saying who's 2 and who's 92, but we're going to do things a little bit different than I normally do to hopefully keep everybody 2 and 92 engaged. Before we get started with our class, though, in Matthew 25, Brother Jim is going to lead us in prayer.
Humbly bow before you. Recognize that you as the only true and living God. You are a God that we can speak to through prayer. We're so thankful for that. And we're thankful for your Son who came to this earth to live among us, to die for us, to buried, to be resurrected, to give us that hope, to give us that hope of eternity in heaven with you, with your Son, to have our sins washed away. We're just so thankful for many things. We're just so thankful that we can gather here tonight to study from your word, and we just pray that we should be with He leads us in thoughts in your book of Matthew.
So to understand Matthew chapter 25, you really have to go back to Matthew chapter 24. I'm not going to spend a great amount of time discussing Matthew 24. We will at some point, Lord willing. If we were to take a poll tonight, and what's the most difficult chapter in the book of Matthew, I dare say 24 would win hands down. It's the one that a lot of things are said about, taught about that are not really right. To really understand Matthew 24, you have to understand Jesus came out, verse 1, from the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out the temple buildings to him. And he said to them, do you see all these things? And they said to you, and truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will not be torn down. The disciples really interpret that as the end of the world, but that's really not the end of the world. And so as he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us when will these things happen? The temple be destroyed is what they're asking. And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And so they had kind of lumped all those things together, but Jesus does not lump all of those things together. And so he begins to describe when the temple is going to be destroyed there in those first few verses. And then we get down to we come down here, let's see, where did I get to? Verse 34, and verse 34, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. All right? So we shift gears at that point. Jesus, and I think that really helps us understand Matthew chapter 24, that we've really shifted gears. We've gone from the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in those first verses, and now we've transitioned into Jesus' return, or his second coming. And so that brings us really into chapter 25. So that's what our discussion is, Jesus' return, which brings us into chapter 25. Again, there were no chapters, there were no verses originally, and so the flow continues on. Don't lose the idea that what we're talking about is Jesus' return. Have you ever been to a wedding? The fact that no one raised your hand means you're all liars, I believe. Okay. You've been to a wedding? Yes. Yeah, okay. You've been to a wedding, right? There's certain customs about weddings, right? What do you think of some customs about a wedding? Right, the bride usually wears purple, right? No. Okay, the father walks her down and gives her away. My father-in-law didn't want to do that. I don't know why, Miss Joan. I mean, look at this package. You know what I'm saying? All right, the father usually walks the bride down, gives her away. She doesn't wear purple. She wears white. There are usually vows and rings that are exchanged, right? A lot of times there's a unity candle that's lit. One of the things new that I've kind of seen in just the last few years, instead of a unity candle, they'll do a sand thing sometimes, where they pour sand in and mixes that together. One of my favorite part is I get to go at the end. Now by the authority invested in me by the state of Tennessee as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it makes me sound really official, right? The state of Tennessee has authorized me to do these things. Those are things, now you can kiss the bride. So those are some traditions, okay? Those are what we know, what we experience. The Jewish experience is quite different, okay? And that's what we're going to get into here in verse 1 of chapter 25. And the kingdom of heaven will be compared to the 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Okay, we're talking about the church here and talking about it compared to 10 virgins who are going to meet out the bridegroom. We would just call him not the bridegroom, but what? The groom is what we would normally call him, okay? And so this is the male counterpart in the marriage here. And so their custom, and evidently there's not a whole lot known about the custom here, but these virgins would go out and they would escort this bridegroom in, verse 1. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were prudent, okay? And that's what my translation has. It's really the idea of foolish and wise, we might understand. Okay, so you've got 5 smart ones. You've got 5, well, not on the so smart side of it, okay? Verse 3, for when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. They didn't, my wife said yesterday as we were going somewhere and doing something, we needed a flashlight, and she was like, hey, I call her name. If I called her name now, she would talk, and so I would not do that. But I called her name, and I said, hey, turn the torch. She calls it a torch because I have a British accent on my phone, but that's a whole other story. I turned the torch on, and my wife said, what did we do before we had a flashlight on our phone? We stumped our toe a lot. I mean, that's what we did, right? They didn't have a flashlight. They had these lamps, right? And what did you... Some of you may have experienced that, right, where you had lamps in your house instead of those things. And what did you have to have for those lamps? Oil. What happens to that oil eventually? It runs out. You got to fill it back up, right? Okay? Just like your electric. If you don't pay it, it runs out and they cut it off, okay? Well, with these lights, right, you have to keep filling up. So 5 of the foolish ones didn't do what? They didn't carry an oil. They were what we might refer to as unprepared. They weren't ready for the long haul, okay? So 5 of them were foolish. Now, verse 4, but the prudent took oil and flask along with them. So the difference between the foolish and the wise was preparation, right? Preparation is really the idea here between the difference. That's the difference between the two of them. All right, now while the bridegroom was delayed, evidently that was a common thing. He would try to be delayed. He would try to come in at maybe at a time they didn't expect. From what I was reading the other day, while he was delayed, they all got drowsy and began to sleep. You know how it is, right? You sit in your recliner for about 5 minutes and you're gone, right? So these gals, okay, they had been sitting there. They got drowsy. It was longer than they expected. That's tough sometimes, isn't it? When something's longer than you expected. Like Christmas, you know, it's coming up as a kid, right? As a kid, we had this thing in my room, and it had 24 pieces of candy tied on it. And so every night you would go in and you would untie a piece of candy, and it was to count it. That thing lasted forever. I didn't think it was ever going to get there. You know, it took forever. As an old guy now, it's like, man, it's the 24th of December already? When you're a kid, it's tough waiting that time period. The first century Christians were waiting for something they thought were going to happen pretty immediately. Some of them had quit their jobs and devoted themselves to prayer. In fact, we read about that in some other places. Maybe that's why Jesus tells this parable, is because his coming is not going to be instantaneous, is it? His second return is not going to be like that. And the difference between foolish Christians and wise Christians are those who are prepared for the long haul. So he's delayed, okay? We would think Jesus here in this bridegroom category. That's a common thing throughout the New Testament, is it not? Jesus is the bridegroom or the groom, and what's the bride? The church. The church. And so a common theme through the New Testament. But at midnight there was a shout, "Behold, the bridegroom! Come out to meet him." Have you ever been startled awake? These gals were drowsy, right? And all of a sudden, here's some hollering and shouting going on. Here, they must have gotten ready very quickly. And then those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. Okay, got them back and ready, got them back and prepared. And what? The foolish said to the prudent, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You ever need a flashlight? Click it on and no batteries, and man, I really need some batteries here. Your phone doesn't have the charge to turn on. These gals don't have the oil that they need. Their lamps, they're not going to be able to see. They're unprepared. And so they're begging for help here. Foolish said to the prudent, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the prudent answered, "No, there will not be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." You know, some people get on these virgins and they're like, well, they're not very nice. You know, they're not helping each other out. I think you're missing the point of the parable when you see that. I think the point really is, I can't be prepared for you and you can't be prepared for me. I don't get to heaven riding your coattails. You don't get to heaven riding my coattails. I can't get you there. I can help you, but I can't make you go there. I can't make you be prepared. I can do all the help in the world. Only person I can make prepare or make me ready to go to heaven, prepared to go to heaven, is myself. That's just reality. And I think that's what's going on here. These other virgins, these wise virgins, couldn't help now. They couldn't help them by giving them oil. And while they were going away to make the purchase, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. A lot of times we think about the great supper, the marriage supper, when the bridegroom takes the bride. We think about going to heaven. And I think that's kind of the imagery that we see here. Remember, we're still coming out of Matthew chapter 24, where we're talking about the second coming of Christ. And this parable is discussing that. Those who were ready went in with him in the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Later, the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open up for us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on the alert then, for you do not know the day nor the hour. Now, what day or hour are we talking about? The Lord's return, the second return, the coming of Christ. We don't know. And so what's the message that you get from this? Be prepared. Be a Boy Scout, right? And the Boy Scouts are always be prepared. Isn't that their motto? I don't remember. Be prepared. Be ready.
Just something comes to my mind, and I hadn't realized it before till we were just going through this. And
Mhm.
I've been through this like all of us several times. But the ones that were prepared and the ones that were not prepared had something in common. They all slumbered and slept,
Mm-hmm.
which may be a warning to the church today. Wake up.
Right. Right. Be ready. Be prepared.
Even though you brought oil, you got your lamps, we say, quote unquote, you're prepared. All of them got weary, got tired, and fell asleep.
Right.
So maybe that tells us something today is if we're not careful, we too can grow weary, get tired, and fall asleep.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's the problem we have so often. We get lulled to sleep, if you will, by living in our daily routines, day in and day out. I get up, I go to work, I get up, maybe I'm retired, but I have certain things, maybe I have doctor's appointments. I get up every day, and do I get up every day thinking, this could be it? The Lord could come back. It's going to be a long haul, is what he was saying to them. I think especially those early first century church Christians that they thought it was going to be immediate, and you know as well as I do that we're 2,000 years later here, and it hasn't been immediate. Are you prepared for the long haul? Are you prepared? And that's really, I think, the question that we see here in Matthew chapter 25 is, are you prepared for 5 years? 10 years? The Lord could come back tomorrow. He could come back tonight. I might not even finish class. We don't know. But if he doesn't, are you willing to be faithful? Pay the price to be faithful no matter how long it takes. Anybody questions or comments in the first 13? Yes.
Well, the thing that made some of these brides, half of them, unprepared was they didn't have enough oil. Apply that to today's Christian. Today's Christian doesn't have enough water.
Okay. The question is, these virgins didn't have enough oil. They were unprepared. What are we missing today that causes us to be unprepared? Maybe some thoughts.
I think a lot of times we think we've got all the time in the world. And not only that, everybody out there that needs Jesus has all the time in the world.
Yes. Where the first century church thought he was coming back directly, anybody thought the Lord's coming back today? Right? Most of us are like, yeah, he's coming back. Will he come back today? He could. Probably not, right? That's what most of us probably think. And so I think that's one of our great problems. We're unprepared because we think we have all the time in the world. So that may be an answer. Yes, sir.
I think one of the answers is, the Bible says the Lord's going to come back and will come again. I can't quote it. I'll have to paraphrase. And to all them who have not obeyed the gospel. I don't know the verse I'm thinking about, but I know a guy in a book I read always used this verse as an introduction to his trying to save somebody. Do you think you believe in God and you believe he's coming back to you? He'd say, have you obeyed the gospel? And he puts this to him. Also, I think we get in routine coming to church and hear the gospel, hear the gospel, hear the gospel. Sometimes we just never
there's a lot of things that cause us to be unprepared, not ready. The routines that we get in life. I think the devil does a very good job of distracting us. And what I mean by that, you think about all the things that are going on in our world, and we're involved in this, 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 and we got all these things going on. And it's not necessarily bad to be involved in things. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem when those trump the Lord. And it's very easy for those things to come in that are in our lives and we begin to give precedence to other things. And so we have to be careful about that. Yes, sir.
I think one of the problems today is that some people think they're prepared because they've been told they're prepared. But they haven't gone and looked at what the Bible says about what it takes to be prepared.
Yeah.
And so I think the Bible's very clear that some people are going to be surprised that they are not prepared.
Right.
Because they're going to say, didn't I do these things?
Right. Lord, Lord, we not prophesied in thy name and thy name cast out? And I never knew you. And yeah, I think that's a good point. You think these virgins went and were like, listen, we're just going to go unprepared? I mean, I don't think they went that way. I don't think they went going, listen, we're not going to have enough oil when he shows up. I think they went thinking they were ready, but they weren't ready. And I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of people that think they're ready today that are not ready.
We have a personal responsibility. It's not your job as the preacher. We have to search the scriptures.
Right.
We have to see if what you're saying is true.
Yes. Work out your own salvation.
And there are a lot of people that rely on other people, and unfortunately, they're going to be surprised.
Yes. I think there's a lot of people sitting in church pews, I'll use that term loosely, who just appreciate being their religion being spoon-fed to them. Here's what you believe, here's what you do, here's what you think here. And I'm not the authority. Never have been, never will be. If you get to heaven and say, Chris King said, I'm going to hide under a rock. Like, I don't know them, Lord. What are they talking about? This is the authority. Somebody else on Matthew 25, 1 through 13. Yes, sir.
I think there's a problem with people just losing their fire. I guess also as part of that. But you know what Jesus said in the church way I see it, you know,
Right.
either warm or cold, you know, you're lukewarm.
Right.
Sometimes it's that other thing, they feel safe and things like that, they get into routines and
Yes.
they're just not quite as excited about it as they used to be, and then they just go through the motions and then they lose what they're supposed to be focusing on and things
Right.
like that.
Well, you think about the parable of souls there in Matthew chapter 13, you know, that it sprung up quickly, but, you know, tribulation came and caused it to fall away. Yeah, you've seen those people who come on out of the baptistry on fire. You think, how can you get wet and get on fire? But there's people who come out of that baptistry and they're on fire, but they burn out very quickly, you know, it seems like sometimes. And this is not a sprint. You've seen the Olympics where they do the 100-yard dash, right? This is not a 100-yard dash for most people. It's going to be the marathon. And are we prepared for that? Somebody else. Okay, we're going to do something I don't normally do, and just since you don't know, I'm not a song leader, never have been a song leader, but I'm going to lead you in a song because we're going to try to keep everybody engaged here. So, going along with our theme here, there's a great day coming. There's a great day coming, a great day coming, there's a great day coming by and by, when the saints and the sinners shall be parted by and by. Are you ready for that day to come? Are you ready? Are fall asleep during the sermon, I'll just stop and we'll lead singing. And so that's not going to go well for you. Okay. You just heard me bellow that thing out. You're like, well, we're not falling asleep anymore. All right, so that's Matthew 25. We're again focusing on this idea, this concept of Jesus' return from Matthew chapter 24, the end of it. We've talked about being prepared. How can we be prepared? And that brings us to verse 14. Our text says this, "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them." That's what all of you do, right? When you're going to go off to Florida for a week or whatever, you call together your friends and you give them your money. Is that how y'all do it? Yeah, me neither. I don't do. I'm going to need that money at the condo, right? To one, he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey. Now listen, there was a guy that had 5, there was a guy that had 2, there was a guy that had 1. But did you notice they all had something? And that something was based on what? Their ability is what it says, right? It was based on their ability. He gave them according to their ability. Here's what I hear sometimes that drives me absolutely batty, okay? Somebody will be like, I just can't do anything for the Lord. Like, what? Well, and they'll start listing things. I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't do this. Listen, quit throwing yourself a pity party. Get off your high horse there and think about what can you do. We don't need a list of all the things you can't do. We need a list of the things you can do. I'm going to tell you, there's plenty of things that can be done for the Lord, okay? You can make a phone call. You can make a visit. You could pray. I mean, you think about the power of prayer. But a lot of times people are like, well, I can't do that, so I can't do anything. Baloney. Baloney. That's ridiculous. Everybody had an ability, okay? Everybody had an ability. Yes, some were 5, some were 2, some were 1. But I don't think the Lord was upset about that. All right, so we read on. Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents. So the 5-talent guy, he's like, boom, we're getting busy, okay? He goes out, works, figures out, gets 5 more. All right, so we go on. The same manner, the one who received the 2 talents gained 2 more. Same idea. 5 guy went out, 5 more. 2 guy went out, 2 more. All right? But he who received the 1 talent, went away, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. I used to know a guy, and we used to kid him about he used to bury his money in a mayonnaise jar in the backyard. And this is what I think of when I think of this guy. He cleaned out the Hellmans, right? Put his money in there and dug a hole in the backyard and buried it back there. There's a lot of Christians that are burying talents in their backyard. All right. Now, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who received the 5 talents came up, brought 5 more talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have gained 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. His master said, What? Only 2 more? The other guy brought 5. That's not what it says, is it? That's not what it says at all. In fact, his master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Did you notice that he says the same thing to the 2 guy as he says to the 5 guy? The same thing. Here's what we do. Well, I've only got 2 talents. I'm not as good as brother so-and-so, or I'm not as good as sister so-and-so. She's got 5. I've only got 2. The Lord doesn't care about that, did he? He didn't fuss because the 2-talent guy brought 2 more talents. He didn't fuss because, well, the 5 guy's better than you are. He didn't look at it that way, did he? He gave them the same condemnation, or the same acclamation. He said, well done. Brother, I don't know about you, but those have to be some of the sweetest words that will ever be heard in your ears. Well done, thou good and faithful slave, servant. I hope to hear those words one day. I hope to stand before my master in judgment for him to say, well done. I hope that you long to hear those words as well. But there were 3 guys, weren't there? All right. What happened to the mayonnaise jar guy? Verse 24, and the one who had received the 1 talent came up, said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man. This is not going well already. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would not be insulting the guy first thing, okay? What, do you notice? He doesn't blame himself. Who's he blaming? The master. Master, it's your fault. You're a hard man. You're a hard man. So this is not going well already. This is heading south. How deep of a hole can this guy dig? Well, you're fixing to find out. Reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. What's he accusing him of? Stealing, isn't he? He's accusing him of, listen, you're a hard man. You're a thief. How do you think this is going to go, right? So you're a hard man, gathering where you've scattered no seed. And I was afraid. You're such a bad person, such a mean person. I have shaken in my shoes thinking about this. I am scared to death. That's how bad of a person you are. I was afraid, went away, hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. You can't punish me. You can't do anything, you mean, awful, stealing, thieving kind of fella. You can't, because, listen, what you gave me, I've brought it back. We have a tendency to blame others for our faults, don't we? That's what he's doing here. He's not taking any kind of responsibility. He's not going, yeah, okay, I realize I should have probably, no, it's you, buddy. It's your fault. And you better not say anything to me, because here's what you gave me. I've brought it back to you. We were talking about being prepared. How do I get prepared? I use what God has given me for His glory. What has God given you? I'm not talking about miraculous gifts or anything of that sort. I believe in miraculous gifts, the giving of the New Testament. But He's given each of us abilities and talents, has He not? It's interesting to me that they use the word talents here, because we use the word talents for a little bit different thought, but the same idea. What talents do you have? Oh, preacher, I don't have it. Oh, stop that. Stop that. Every one of them had talents, didn't they? Every one of them had talents. What has the Lord blessed you with? Maybe it's an ability to write cards. Some people are just gifted that way, aren't they? With the word, they're wordsmiths, I might refer to them as. They are just talented in the way they can write. Some people are great talkers, aren't they not? And they make a phone call and you just feel better. Some people are encouragers. Just when you get around them, man, it's like everything's so much better. Some people are blessed financially and can give and do a great work with that. Some can, and the list could go on and on and on and on, right? Where's your talent? Don't go, well, that's not mine, so I can't do anything. What is your ability? What is your talent? What has God blessed you with that you can use for His glory? Because I don't want to show up on the last day of judgment with the talents and abilities He's given me and say, listen, I buried these in the backyard in a mayonnaise jar, and Lord, here they are. I didn't do a thing for you, Lord, but because you're a hard man, you know, but I'm giving them back to you now. Yes, sir.
You know, all 3 of them did have something in common. The talent they had was given to them.
Mm-hmm.
And God would have been He was just as happy with the 1 talent serving as He was the 5 of the 2.
Right.
But I'll have to confess something. There was a time in my life I would have said the same thing as the 1 talent God. 1 talent servant. God, you're harsh. You're harsh. You're going to send me to hell. But I believe that through growing spiritually and maturing as a Christian, I began to swing from that and not look and say that about God. Now I can say, God, you're a loving God.
Mm.
You're a
Yeah.
which he will.
Yes. Yeah. I think sometimes we look at God as one of those old Western gunslingers. You know, my dad, he loved Westerns, and you know how they are. They walk crooked-legged because they've been riding their horse so long, you know, and they walk into town, you know, and they just looking for somebody to shoot, you know what I'm saying? And they just waiting for you to knock the chip off their shoulders so they can shoot you and put another notch on their belt, right? I think sometimes we view God that way, and that's not God. Our God loved us so very much that he allowed Jesus to die. I mean, that's no greater love has no man than he laid down his life, right? But not only that, he loved these guys enough that he gave them talents. It's not going to be pleasant to show up because, yes, there is a sense that if we show up with this one talent, you know, and done nothing for him, unprepared, if you will, well, let's just hear what he says. His master answered and said to him, "You wicked, lazy slave. You knew that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest." You could have done something, but you did nothing. Did you hear what he referred to him as? A lazy. Why didn't he work for the Lord? Why didn't he serve the Lord? Why didn't he do something to glorify the Lord with what he had? The Bible says he was lazy. You wicked and lazy slave. He goes on and says, verse 28, therefore. Why it's a therefore? Well, it's therefore because of what this guy's done. Because of what this guy's done, take away the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. You know, it's interesting. When we use our talents for the Lord, I don't know if you've discovered this, but usually more talents will show up. As you work and use what God has blessed you with, maybe it's an artistic ability, maybe it's an ability to sing, maybe it's an ability, again, we could list all kinds of things. When you use those gifts that he's blessed you with, so often you find other things that you can do to glorify him. Give the 10 talent guy the 1 talent, right? For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. And hear him. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness, and the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I believe that verse 30 is a reference to hell. As we mentioned, God is going to punish. Yes, he is a loving God, and he's going to do all he can and has done all he can to cause us to want to go to heaven and pave the path, if you will, to heaven through Jesus Christ. But when we reject him and reject his word, outer darkness, weeping, and gnashing of teeth. Man, that's the description of hell. You think of a place like outer darkness. We went to Ruby Falls in Chattanooga. I'm sure some of you have been there before. I'm sure they pulled the same stunt with you. You walk back there, you get in the back, you know, and they're like, y'all want to know what dark is? Hang on a second. And they shut all the lights off. And it's like, where's my hand at? You know, I can't see anything. Who's touching me? You know, what is that? You know, because it is. It's just complete darkness, outer darkness. We're scared of darkness a lot of times, aren't we? Because we don't know what's in front of us. We don't know what's at our feet. We don't know who's lurking around the corner. There's a lot of fear in outer darkness, weeping. Have you ever been in such pain and torment that you just wept? How about so much pain and torment that you just gnashed your teeth? It's not a pretty description. But for those that are unprepared, that's the eternal destiny. All right, let's stop there. Questions or comments that you might have? Uh-oh. Yes, sir. You got a question, you tell me I got 5 minutes. Wow. Yeah, you know, we think 1 not being very much, but I mean, yeah, and that currency exchange, that's pretty good, isn't it? Somebody else, questions or comments? I told you this Sunday, and if you don't remember, I just talk until I'm supposed to stop, and I don't know when I'm supposed to stop. What time are we stopping? The fact that none of you know means I just keep talking. I'm just saying, okay? I'm getting close. Jimmy said 2 minutes. Jimmy's funny. All right. What time do we really stop? 7:45. So I got like 4 minutes. Okay. Questions, comments? If you don't ask a question or comment, we're singing a song. You can stop now. Anybody? Questions or comments? The point is being prepared. Again, you come in from the flow of Matthew chapter 24, and the idea is the Lord is coming back. Okay, the end of Matthew 24, the Lord is coming back. And he's telling this parable, you better be ready. How can I be ready for the Lord's return? I want to be working for him. I want to be serving him. I want to be doing something for the Lord. All right? The song was, I'm going to be a worker for the Lord, but I will spare you because it's my first week, and well, I don't want to move again because it's really hard. Nobody else? Questions or comments through the verse 30? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We ought to let them get up and do that then. Right. Right. Yes. Well, to your point, we got a minute, very quickly. To your point, and I don't mean any offense to anybody when I say this, but sometimes there'll be maybe a little old widow lady that'll come up to me, and I can't preach. I can't preach. But she'll say something to this effect. I want you to know I've been praying for you. I'm going to tell you, you want to help me in life? You carry my name before the Father. That's a blessing in my life. And I appreciate those little old widow ladies who don't think they can do any more, but they're in their closet, if you will, praying. That's a blessing in my life, and probably doing a lot more than what I do, and sometimes so. No, that's right. Absolutely. You think about men like Abraham, and the work he did, and throughout the Old Testament and New Testament, those who were aged who worked for the Lord. And yes, the Lord has no retirement plan. Keep working for the Lord. All right. Well, I'm done. Thank y'all for being here tonight. Anybody that knows any widows or widowers or older folks that maybe need a meal, there's some back here left over from tonight when we delivered all that. Or if you want some, go back there and get you some. So they're back there in the room. If you got any questions, Brian will show you where they are. But yeah, anybody needs food, there's plenty of it back there. Thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you, Brian. I forgot.
Shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah unto the Lord.